Previously, in X-Men, Professor Xavier believes that a threat is looming. So he sends the X-Men to investigate the abandoned lair of their arch-nemesis, Magneto. Coincidentally, former leader of the team, Scott Summers, is shipwrecked in the Bermuda Triangle with his lady friend, Lee Forrester. The two discover a mysterious aquatic-themed city, which is revealed to be the new fortress of Magneto himself, and he plans to take over the world. I am Jason Lapidus.
I'm Chris Sanagan.
And we are Group of Seven Comics. Welcome to our never-ending Tuesday night live stream read-through of the X-Men comics that made it a classic. As we read Uncanny X-Men 150 or Classic X-Men 54 from October of 1981. At least that is the cover date of that issue. Chris, my friend, how are you?
I'm good. And small correction, it's Captain Lee Forrester.
She and I were tight.
Gotta give the lady her due.
That's I respect. I wouldn't call that so much of a correction as an addition. And as well, you could call her by her full name, right? If you're going to add Captain. Elitist, whatever name this is.
It's a strange name that we are wrapping our heads around, and my dog has started to bark.
Is there something we need to address with your dog?
Well, it's that and her being, hey, just give me a sec. You keep talking.
Yeah, that's no problem. I'm happy to.
I'm going mute. You can talk.
Perfect. That's just the way I like it. So we are Group of Seven Comics. We love to make comics. We make right now a story arc called Peregrines in our ongoing series, Group of Seven Comics. We're up to issue 8, which is the second part of the Peregrines title, and we just finishing tomorrow the monthly, I don't know, I started like a daily spontaneous comic on Instagram, which has been a total joy to do. It's called Peregrine's Hunter's Moon, and the last panels wrap up tomorrow. So you should follow us on Instagram.
Tomorrow? It ends tomorrow?
It ends tomorrow. It's at Group of Seven Comics. Of course, the number is 7. You could also follow at Chris Sanagan or at Jason Lapidus Art to find the same postings of that, but different content otherwise, which is a lot of fun for us to do. I also wanted to, provide the context for this series of episodes called Previously in X-Men, where we focus on the Chris Claremont run of X-Men comics that really lay the foundation for what has become the pop culture phenomenon, right? With not only the number one hit comic of the 1980s from mainstream Western comics like with X-Men, but of course you get the generational animated series in the 1990s, a slew of very memorable action figures that a lot of kids grew up on as well, and the video game. And then, of course, the feature film franchise from Fox in the aughts. The turn of the millennium, we get 13 X-Men films and spin-offs from that series, which is massive. And they're like the first superhero team to get a film franchise like that before the Avengers, right? Almost a decade before the Avengers. No, pardon me, more than a decade before the Avengers. And it's pretty exciting to sort of figure out, well, what are the comics that made that franchise have great characters and great stories? And it isn't the first 93 issues. It's not the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby run, which not to attack any creator, but both Lee and Kirby were really busy with many other titles, including legendary runs, of course, on the Fantastic Four and Thor, Hulk, so on and so on. So it's no surprise that the X-Men did not get the premier work out of both those creators, and it quickly went on to other artists and writers. And it floundered by the time it hit sort of, its 30s and 40s. It was a dwindling series, eventually reached cancellation. Instead of cancellation, they decided just to do reprints. And when editor and writer Len Wein comes on with Dave Cockrum, they revamp it with Giant Size X-Men #1 in 1975, and basically take a floundering series and turn it into the top-selling Marvel comic that it becomes, within a couple of years. And of course, Chris Claremont takes over as the writer within about 2 issues, and the series just builds and builds and skyrockets, especially once artist team of John Byrne and inker Terry Austin join the fold and take us through bringing in legendary characters, and of course the Dark Phoenix saga, Days of Future Past, and many other memorable story arcs, which are the inspiration for movies. Right? We've had 2 Dark Phoenix movies. We've had a Days of Future Past film, but you don't get that outside of that run of comics, or do we? So we're kind of now we're past the John Byrne, right? We ended John Byrne at 144, 143, and we're on to Dave Cockrum's second turn, and we are reading now. Ooh, double-sized X-Men 150.
It is double-sized.
Very exciting. There's been some build-up. You know, after Phoenix dies, Scott goes his way into his little sort of soul search, and this is maybe when it comes back. Is that my dog now coming to the door?
Possibly.
It is not. I think it's my daughter going into her room. I have the door open a little bit so he can just put his nose in if he needs to, because he's just a pup, so he misses me a lot. And I always love seeing him. He makes me very happy. All right. So you've read this issue for the first time. I read it for the first time too. How are you reading it, Chris?
I'm reading it through the magic of DVD-ROM, which is an alien technology that kids today would have trouble recognizing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So those, the DVD contains PDFs of original scans of the comics, not digital recolors. So they're kind of, I want to say they have an authenticity to them.
They do. Over 485 complete printable comics, cover to cover, every issue through August 2005.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So the complete Claremont run is in there. So that's 75 through about 91. Which is pretty cool. I'm reading it today in my trusted Essentials, Volume 3. Nice. And I'm lucky enough to have the original.
But for the first time, you said?
Yeah, I've had this one for a little while, but I never really read it because I've had trouble getting connected to the Cockrum run. Mm-hmm. And I have a few reasons as to why that might be the case. And we can start with, I'll show you that one of the main reasons in a minute. But good cover, you know, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes. I think if you came to it cold, as in you hadn't seen many X-Men covers, I'd say though, because of like the trope of Magneto versus people using the shield of magnetism against optic blasts has been done about 3 or 4 times on cover so far. So obviously
on the original X-Men #1 from 63.
Yeah.
And then we get it where he's fighting them in the vault. Oh, sorry, of course. And then the homage to that on X-Men 104 by Cockrum, where Wolverine kind of takes Iceman's spot at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And then we get in issue 113, there's a scene of them fighting. I think it's like a distance shot where we see them all kind of fighting Magneto in his sub-volcanic lair.
Yes.
But I don't believe, by the way, the Leafs just tied it up. I put this hat on for good luck.
Nice.
Hoping, I mean, my Leaf paraphernalia has brought me nothing but pain and suffering. But I'm really hoping to turn the tide. So
Scarborough's own, the bunt, Scarborough, Ontario's own. Yeah, exactly. Like what you're saying, you know, even as you're describing those covers, it's you know, we've had the same Magneto story about 4 times now during our year of you and I doing these comics.
Sure.
Secret underground layer, right? X-Men go to face Magneto,
right?
And so, you know, on surface, you know, if you haven't read this comic, I think on surface, you know, I think Cockrum, and as we'll get into it, but I think you know, Claremont and Cockrum, you know, flip some scripts for us, but
agreed.
We get to a point where, but before that, again, you're looking at this face value, it's another Magneto X-Men showdown, almost the exact same power sets on display in action form,
right?
In a secret layer of some kind. You know, it's like the moon, it's the volcano, and it's underwater. I mean, we are going through all the Bond villains here.
True. We did the moon one on that odd episode last week where we talked about the Pride of the X-Men, the pilot for the X-Men cartoon that did not happen in 1989. But it was really just X-Men cliches kind of wrapped up into 22 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good way. X-Men cliches. And like And so I can imagine if you are a fan of X-Men at this point, you're probably like, yeah, cool, whatever. You're lapping it up. As these are coming out, you're willing to accept a few cliches because you're enjoying the series. I can
Right.
imagine this also turning people off too, because like, oh, here we go again. No, but I say that, and I imagine that every run of every comic, whether it's Batman and the Joker, whether it's Spider-Man, Sinister Six, or whatever, there's cliches that are common that
Right.
come
So
back into focus.
we get X-Men 104. They fight him. The new X-Men fight him for the first time. That's 10 issues into their run, right? They face Magneto for the first time, and it's like he just goes right through them in terms of the story. It wasn't really a good fight. They face him again by issue 112 and 113, where he's got them captured and he overpowers them, and then eventually
that's with Nanny.
With the nanny, where they break out and they have a pretty good fight, and they bring the volcano down on top of him, and it's just too much for him to have to, so they kind of use their environment to overpower him, and everyone barely escapes, including him. And now we haven't seen him since around then. I mean, that's like 35. That's almost like 3 years if it's monthly. That's 3 years of publication without Magneto. That's a long time in comics.
That's a long time.
And Marvel is making work. This is in the early on in the Jim Shooter era. They know that you cycle through your key characters. You have readers from, let's just say, ages 8 through 12. So within that 3-4 years, you're trying to get new younger kids in. You're trying to go through your cycle of. You're going to get your Magnetos. You're going to get your Sentinels. You're going to get your other characters that are at Juggernaut, and then you throw in a few new ones, depending if you have a new writing team or a new art team on there. So for Magneto to be gone for 3 years is a big deal. This is also the first issue with Cyclops probably on the cover, in a little while, especially in costume, right? We haven't seen him full front. So this is like exciting to kind of have him back. And I imagine if I was a little kid and I saw this on the newsstand and I had not been reading X-Men, I would be like, oh, this is like, it's double sized. I could ask my mom, can I have a couple more quarters, please?
Right. And so you're saying if you're not a middle-aged man who have been doing X-Men videos every week for a year plus and going through these in depth, you might have a different take on it.
I might be really excited by this. I like the color choices, his blue costume and the orange background. There's a nice compliment happening there. The yellow trade dress looks really good. The characters in shadow in the foreground, that terrible costume of Kitty Pryde. Yeah. Hopefully she's dead. At least the costume is dead. And it reminds me that, Cockrum doesn't want to draw Wolverine, because in the X-Men Classic, which it's called at this point, not Classic X-Men anymore, but X-Men Classic version of this cover, Wolverine and Colossus and Storm are the bodies in the rubber.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's very dramatic, but I'm not really going to pull the cover up because I don't think it adds a lot of value to our moment here. So it's kind of fun to see that. But what I wanted to say before, if you can go to the first page.
Of course. Oh, yes. I was going to probably mention
this. We were talking about like the dynamism of, having this character kind of reveal himself. He's taking over the world. We've seen a couple great Magneto splashes. This is not one of them.
Agreed.
So one of the fun things that a lot of us drawer type people have had a chance to enjoy is a Marvel publication called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And in it, Stan Lee narrates John Buscema's art lesson of drawing Marvel Comics. He's not the house artist, like John Romita Sr. is art director at that point in time, I believe. But Buscema is like just a top-notch artist and kind of really, really well suited to draw just about anything you want him to draw. But it's been a staple of bookstores and on every artist bookshelf, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. In it, they show the difference between drawing stuff for DC and drawing stuff for Marvel. And if you're drawing for the competition, as they'll always call it, the distinguished competition, right? DC, distinguished competition.
Oh, is that how they say it?
All the time. Characters' hands are closer to the body, elbows are closer to the body, feet are planted closer together, and the character is relatively upright on the panel. If you're drawing this Marvel, like Jack Kirby, template he builds, the dynamics that he brings to comics, like the new language that he creates of the most dynamic superhero art that's ever been done in the the early 60s and so forth. You turn this panel askew,
Okay.
you give it a Dutch angle, you get those feet ridiculously far apart to get, and you
Did you
put
just
the
call it a
camera.
Dutch angle?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's
yeah, yeah.
not. I shouldn't look that up on Urban Dictionary.
It's actually safe. It's, I believe, a film term. And
Okay,
do we want to? Have you been watching the Leaf game there, or maybe
no,
that was the replay? Shoot, I thought it was another goal.
I'll have to check it out.
Oh my goodness, I'm such a fool because I don't have the sound on. Right, I just saw them all cheering and then they're hugging Bunting again. I'm like, oh my god, this is so exciting. But it's just it was a replay of the 5th goal. Anyway, so Dutch angle is a film term. I think I guess it's popularized by Dutch cinema, but it
Okay.
just basically means that the way that you and I know it best is on the old Batman 66 TV show. How everything kind of is askew.
Yeah.
There's that episode of Simpsons where they're talking to Adam West when they meet him,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Why doesn't Batman do the bat? Doesn't dance
Oh, yeah.
anymore?" And the camera starts to turn on him.
Yeah.
So that's a Dutch angle. It's like this
Okay.
this turned image. So this is not dynamic enough. It doesn't look like Marvel. It looks like a DC drawing.
Okay.
And of course, Cockrum's work history is with DC, not Marvel.
Of course.
He cuts his teeth drawing, a Legion of Superheroes, etc.
Right.
So I'm not surprised. Boring page.
Right. And also, we don't have the preamble, which the little preamble above the title where it talks about either Children of the Atom or mutant kind, and it lists the X-Men, gives a little intro into the Uncanny X-Men. But this is the first one where I noticed it was not there.
Feared and hated by, that whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
By the people they protect. Yeah, fun. So I don't think we need to. There's a lot of verbiage, a lot in this issue, and it is a double size. So I don't think
so much.
Stop to read, but we can kind of go through it at a pretty good pace to cover the plot points and
I think
read what
we
need to read. All right. So he's basically saying that he wants to take control of the entire world.
Yes.
And this is a hologram of Magneto.
Yes.
There is no noticeable projector, no discussion of any projector. He's able to put the hologram in. You can turn the page whenever you're ready.
Gotcha.
He's able to put the hologram in the offices of every major world leader without him having a projector there, which is okay, cool. There are superhero things happening. So
there are a few things like that in this issue where you go,
yeah,
wait, what? Like because again, I mean, as much as we enjoy the superhero genre and the tropes, and we like to have some silly fun as well, when things seem kind of off the spectrum in a way that just almost it's just incongruous, it comes across very noticeably, especially when like things have been so tight for so long. There's a few parts like that. I mean, I'll let you finish your thought. This is one of them, though. This idea that I'll just appear in the capitals, and everybody's there.
Yes.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I get it. It's silly comic books, but still, it's an interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, just a projection of some kind. They call it a hologram. I mean, if we were to say that he has, he's able, I would buy into this. Okay, and this would be a cool one. I think is that he would take enough metallic particles in the room, and he's so powerful that he can manipulate the particles in a room to create a little avatar of himself, and maybe vibrate the sound somehow. I don't know how he'd create sound, but anyway, at least one at a time. I don't know, but there must be a way that he can power a machine that can do something. But anyway. Cool. So there's actually, Reagan. We get Reagan actually there. We get Thatcher. That's pretty cool.
Brezhnev.
Yeah, Brezhnev is there. And is it Mao as well?
No, that's his picture.
Yeah, so Mao's in the picture. I don't know who the leader of People's Republic of China was at that moment in time. But pretty cool. He's appearing in all these world leaders' offices. And he's like, yeah, basically you need to turn over control over all your military, especially your nuclear weapons, to me, and like disarm everything. Otherwise, I'm going to kill everybody because
Yeah.
the world in your hands. You hold us on the brink of death, and you've been killing my people, and I will not stand for it anymore. So we're gonna fix this now with my fist. And I do love this kind of page that Cockrum puts together. These sort of montage pages where he doesn't use straight lines. He's more fluid and playful about it. I like this idea of Magneto has the black under his mask like that. We saw it in the cartoon too.
Yeah.
It's like very menacing.
It's like when Batman takes off his mask and he's always blacked out his eyes, you know.
Well, in this case, I don't believe that that Magneto puts on eyeliner.
Eyeliner.
Or,
Sidebar. Sorry, just on that note,
Please.
I want because I thought this was really funny, and goes to show you the power of a character and the power of an actor. My kids and I were watching for the first time because, of course, as you know, like many of you out there, you read the Harry Potter books with your children, and then maybe you watch the movies because they're a lot of fun. And so we watched The Goblet of Fire the other day. We finished the book and watched the movie, and of course, it stars Robert Pattinson and Cedric Diggory. And the whole time he's on the screen, I'm like, Batman! It's Batman!
Yeah.
And it just like Batman wouldn't do that anyway. And it makes me think how much he inhabited that character for me for the movie The Batman. Anyway, sidebar, I know, but you got me with the black eyes and
I'm in the mood to watch that one again.
Which one? Goblet of Fire?
No, the Batman.
The Batman? Yeah.
I've had it on several times while drawing, so I'm in the mood for it again.
That's all I'm saying.
So, we get some good shots of Magneto with his beautiful white locks. He's quite a strong and powerful looking guy, but also sophisticated and rugged. And it makes me think about. I know we all loved Ian McKellen in terms of his performance, but he really was lacking in the physicality. So much so that even in the first film, he's padded, right? He wears chest and shoulder padding to thicken him up.
Now, if you remember correctly, back to your Wizard Comics days, Wizard cast Rutger Hauer in the X-Men movie as Magneto.
This version, Rutger Hauer, especially Blade Runner time period, if you were to connect these two pieces, he's perfect.
Yeah.
I remember when they also cast Sean Connery in Wizard. Like those are, by the way, the shittiest.
They cast Sean Connery in the X-Men movie?
No, as Magneto in Wizard at some point.
Oh, really? Okay.
You need to take a moment there. Happy New Year, my ex-friends.
Happy New Year, Jason.
We wish to you as well, my friend. I hope you're doing really well. And Jason, do you remember any Wizard fan casting for Magneto that was not Rutger Hauer or Sean Connery that you found memorable or interesting, or did you always have one in mind that you think would have been a great choice? Now that we live in a world where we can reimagine characters, we're not necessarily bound by silly things like hair color, which people always did in comics. Like it kind of drove me nuts that they would always think with any bald character you needed to have a bald actor, as if that so Billy Zane is always getting cast. It's like Lex Luthor because he's bald. It's ridiculous.
Look at Billy, and he's a fine actor, that Billy Zane.
Yeah, so I'm thinking now it's more about sort of the spirit and the presence, and you can cast outside of a person's appearance. We can digitally alter people to make them look however they need to. It's more about, again, their performance. Josh Brolin played Thanos.
Right.
We're okay. We can modify things. So he only remembers Professor X.
That's because he's bald.
Because he's bald. Of course I have no issue with that casting. It always was kind of perfect because he's a great actor with gravitas.
It really is. It really was.
Do you have a wish going forward? Do you hope they keep McAvoy and Fassbender as they expand the Marvel?
I enjoyed both. I liked how both approached the characters. I have no problem if they decide to go down that road again. I've got no problem if they decide to recast. I particularly enjoyed kind of towards the end those. It wasn't those last couple of movies maybe not as strong as the first couple, but Fassbender can be a pretty strong presence on screen when he wants to be.
Big time. big time.
And
I would
especially in the kind of combat scenes as Magneto, as a younger, middle-aged Magneto, it's incredibly formidable.
See, now you can let him be his age,
right?
And he can do Magneto for 30 more years,
right?
You know, if in that universe, I think he'd be great either way, as long as they don't give him a huge white wig, like a big coif.
right.
But he's a good, formidable Magneto, and he can do
is.
accents, so you can give him something, you know, he doesn't have to be British or Scottish. He can be something interesting.
No, exactly.
And I wonder if they'll ever get away from a British Xavier, which he's not in any of the cartoons.
No,
he is just with Patrick Stewart being British, and then of course McAvoy.
Yeah.
But the character, I believe, is just supposed to have that fun,
that erudite blue blood American.
Well, and I did some research as to where that accent comes from.
Okay.
By the way, it's called the Mid-Atlantic accent.
Oh yeah, isn't it Katharine Hepburn?
Katharine Hepburn is a great example, and it is a contrived, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but its history is intentional. There was an aristocratic professor who wanted there to be an accent that was more universal for people who come from aristocratic families on either side of the Atlantic. And it was perpetuated at Ivy League schools in the US. So it was a sign that you had been, you know, formally educated at a high caliber institution. And that's why Frasier uses that.
Right.
Where his dad is a cop, he's blue collar. Frasier and Niles have that erudite accent. And people often will call, what's the actor? I don't want to play this game right now.
Is it Rutger Hauer?
No, there is an actor from, you know, the 40s and 50s who often gets credited with that accent. And in that case, it's not accurate because he's actually a Brit who moved to America. So it's just the natural one for him. But To Catch a Thief, what's his name? Anyway.
Cary Grant. So
his is natural. His is like the organic way, where Katharine Hepburn's is a learned accent. Like Frasier. All right, moving on. Quite the detour. So he threatens everyone. He gives them the ultimatum, and then he goes to talk to, and he starts this, you know, his champagne is there. Like, I've given my speech, time to have a drink. And Cyclops, hands on hips, is like, come on, you're celebrating a little too soon. What are you going to do? Like, this is not fair. You shouldn't be trying to threaten people or kill people. And it's such an awkward panel with him standing there.
It is. Hey, listen, mister.
Yeah, and he drops the mister, which is great.
Yeah.
And Lee is wearing, you know, they both are wearing these ridiculous costumes. So they had their clothes destroyed in their shipwreck, and they found themselves on a neighboring island, and they uncover this giant, like, aquatic themed city, which I'm going to spoil. We're not going to learn where this city comes from.
Yeah, I don't think so. With all this tech and where it comes from. Yeah, no.
And the tech, I believe that Magneto can build. Like, I'm all in for that. He can acquire technology and make changes and modify. But why the city structure is there? Why these clothes are there that Scott and Lee put on that are, you know, like uniforms from the Nautilus, or I mean, I don't know what they are. I don't know why they're there. So there are all these kind of unanswered questions as to the decor of this place, and that leads to the thing I revealed to you last week or 2 weeks ago, that there was supposed to originally be an answer for that question in this issue, but as they're going through the process of making it, Dave Cockrum pulls out of investing more of himself into the issue. He originally created a new X-Men character that was going to be called Silky, like in the British Isles, you know, like a magical water nymph kind of character, like a Silky. You know what I mean? You ever heard of Silky before?
Well, I mean, sure. I get what you're saying.
So there was a character that was called Silky that was going to be probably a resident of the city. It was going to be, I imagine, a Deus Ex Machina. Like, when you need her to appear, she's going to rescue a character or turn against Magneto at the last minute. and she's going to then join the X-Men. But Cockrum was unable to negotiate rights for the character, and he realized he didn't have rights to any of their characters he brought, whole cloth. So he pulled the character from the comic.
And we've been denied Silky ever since.
No, because she made it into Futurians.
Right. The other comic that we will do a never-ending YouTube.
So it's fun to think about, like, oh, where would Silky have been in this issue? Does she explain why Scott has these clothes with a giant, squid on it or something? Anyway, so they go through the ideological debate of, is it better to control everyone with an authoritative rule and have peace? Or
and
is it better to have...
it's also under the threat. It's like nuclear Armageddon, right? It's nuclear Armageddon. He says you can't control it because you created these weapons to kill each other and kill mutants in the process. I can't let that happen. I will take all the nuclear weapons off the table.
Exactly. And Scott says, like, with mutants ruling the earth and you ruling the mutants. Yes. Is that so terrible? Like, is that so bad if I rule everything? Come on.
Come on. The champagne's already chilled, Scott.
What about freedom? You know what's funny about that picture? If you look at him, the yes, is that so terrible? A thing to contemplate picture? It looks as if he's holding a Slurpee. Do you know what I mean?
True. Yes. And this Slurpee, which, by the way, has 3 flavors.
Because of the highlight on his shoulder from, I guess, the computer screen, it looks like there's a straw coming out of the cup in his hand. Which looks like he has like a to-go cup from the 7-Eleven. Anyway, we can continue on. If you'd like.
Here we go.
And they continue their debate about what to do. And Magneto discovers, like, he's like, hey, who's this woman? Why is she with you? Where's Jean? He's like,
that's the best part. Hey, I thought you were, thought you had another girlfriend, Jean.
Well, to me, this is actually important. It's leading to something.
Right.
Because it snaps him out of his rage when he realizes that there's human loss.
Right.
For a moment. So to me, this is like a good foreshadow. Like, remember, Claremont has this vision, and we know this in hindsight. I don't think the reader knows it at the time. Claremont is trying to put Magneto on a path to redemption.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking by issue 300 of my run, 200 issues after I start, Magneto should be the leader of the school and redeemed, and Xavier should be dead. That's kind of like where he wants things to go in the big picture. So he needs to move Magneto incrementally toward this redemptive arc. And I think, by the way, the Leaf game is in overtime.
Nice.
I think that having Magneto sort of get snapped back for a second and be like, me being evil doesn't mean I don't care about loss of certain people. And he shows like his traditional or medieval kind of sense of values when it's like she was an honorable foe.
Yeah.
And so I have respect for her, even though we are on opposite sides of like
he says
ideological debate. Yes, exactly.
He says you're all very, very worthy opponents.
Yeah. So I like that kind of part about him. He's sort of classic where he's the bad guy, but he's not all evil all the way through. Like, he has some redeeming qualities where he does have a code of some kind. And that means that you can kind of you can play with that a little bit and see where he goes. So they do a little recap of Jean's death in 3 panels, which is fine. And Cyclops is, like, you're being a huge hypocrite. Basically, piss off. I don't want to talk about this with you, especially in front of my new girlfriend.
Right.
So kind of neat. Just I think it's a good little character piece to have that in there, building toward. And then there's trouble. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say exactly building towards exactly. This is the There's we get to see the there's much more to Magneto in this issue than we have ever really. It's much more multi-sided.
Yes. So. And so the rockets have been launched, and I love when they use their powers to, like, get ready. He's like pulls his helmet to go into battle, and he sends those rockets into the ocean. And then, like, there you can see the architecture of this place. That's not his design, right? He doesn't make the city.
No.
So I still find that really, really weird that they were able to just let this go and never explain it. Anyway, so then he goes and decides he's going to sink this ship. The ship that launched them. So which is pretty terrible.
Pretty terrible. There we go.
And then for those of you who have read like the famous Jim Lee X-Men run, this is the ship that he raises in X-Men #1, which is the name of the series that Jim Lee and Chris Claremont start in about 1991.
Oh, really?
He raises this ship, so it comes back.
Magneto raises this ship.
He does. He raises it from the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, interesting. Did not know that.
We might get there one day.
We'll get there, buddy.
To that issue, because it is at the end of the Claremont run. So it's kind of, we might, we'll talk about it in a couple of years. But anyway, kind of neat. So these guys are all dead.
Right. And this is also, again, going back to what we had said in our little, towards the opening, where we're talking about the range of his power set in this issue. So, obviously master magnetism, totally get it. But it says 1,000 miles away.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So his magnet powers are that strong, working 1,000 miles away.
Yes.
Right.
I like that he's powerful. I think it makes him, like, when he has his focus, I think
it's great. That seems a bit omnipotent.
It does. I mean, maybe that's where, like, the Cerebro piece of Xavier's power, you need the counterpoint.
Right. Maybe.
Like, so he's got Cerebro, so he needs to have a machine called Magneto. Oh, never mind.
Nice.
He needs to have he needs to have a counterpoint machine that also amplifies his abilities. But maybe you could do it where he can trace the trail of the rockets back to their point of origin, so he can sense where it is if he focuses. But that's when you hit him in the back of the head with a baseball bat.
Well, right.
He's had to be in a hugely concentrated state. But anyway, that doesn't happen. They don't hit him in the back of the head with a baseball bat.
They don't not hit him in the back of the head with a baseball bat.
True. So he goes and yells at the Russians, the Soviets, with his hologram projection that's now massive.
Yeah.
And he pulls a volcano. He
does
out of the earth. Into the city, which I think is awesome. And that panel where it's like the city's exploding and getting like washed in lava and explosion looks very Kirby-esque in certain parts to me, which I think is great. So very cool.
It's funny, I saw this, and as you're reading, you're like, oh no, all those people are dead. And then I thought, this is the same what happened with Phoenix. Are they gonna have to kill Magneto now because he just destroyed an entire city full of people, similar to Phoenix destroying the planet?
No,
right, because they say, in the fourth panel, Magneto deliberately retards the volcano's growth, allowing time for a ruthless, desperate mass evacuation of the city. So that's not what happened on that planet when Jean destroyed it.
I wonder if, again, knowing the Marvel method.
Yeah. So
Claremont and Cockrum sit down, they hash out an issue. Claremont takes notes. Cockrum goes to draw. Maybe this is one where, like, we're gonna blow up that city, and then Claremont's like, I really got to add that they don't blow up the city without people in it.
Right.
I gotta add this.
We can't add that. Last time, that's what got John Byrne kicked off the comic.
He didn't get kicked off, but I like the idea that he did.
Yeah.
So yeah, take heed, comrade Premier. You hold the lives of countless millions in your hands. So we shall see what happens. There you go. And Lee is crying to Scott.
Oh, Scott.
And you make me call her captain. Come on, dude. By the way, they're going to the shootout.
She's either crying on Scott's arms or kissing Scott.
Right. And within three
terrible.
panels, you know what's going to happen. She's like, hey, I'm cold.
Yeah.
I know a way to warm up. But this is how she runs, right? This is how she is portrayed in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyway. So they have their moment. And while that's happening, high above, we see that the Stratojet, the X-Men's plane, the Blackbird, falls from the sky. Hey, Trevor 16 Shooter, how are you, man? Hope you're well. Glad you're here. Nice. Are you watching the shootout?
What?
So the X-Men are falling from the sky, and their plane is out of control.
Yes.
Right, the controls are frozen. Everything's gone to shit. And we've got on the Blackbird, we have Colossus, Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, who's going by the name Sprite.
Yes, she is.
Okay, Wolverine and Storm, and Storm is at the helm.
Yep.
And that's very exciting. And then, as it's of course, they're getting tossed and thrown around. Wolverine was getting a sandwich.
He was getting a sandwich.
He was getting a sandwich. A man after my own heart.
Classic Wolverine.
And so, as the plane is out of control, he gets thrown, and his metal head bangs up against Storm's skull, knocking her unconscious.
Yeah.
So this is basically just so there can be a fun.
It's interesting. It's interesting it took them this long to do that, to have him maybe even headbutt someone into, knock them out.
Yeah.
With his, with his adamantium laced skull.
So the plane is out of control because we can't just have them land, right?
No.
We need stakes at this point in the issue because we haven't had any action for the team members yet. And so, by the way, Matthew scored, then Thomas scored for the Blues. Marner just scored for the third player. It's now down to the last shooter for St. Louis. Okay. Marner deked this guy so bad. He deked Binnington so bad.
He did a Connor Bedard?
No. They're talking about something. The refs are talking. I don't like refs when they're talking. Right. But we'll get to that later. So the plane's out of control. Storm's they're gonna make an announcement. Oh, jeepers. Oh no, it's all good. All good. The gold counts. Here we go. The final shooter of the night. Hopefully. He goes in. And he scored. God, which Navich. Anyway, so the plane's going down. You gotta turn that page. Otherwise, I'll get so focused. Ugh.
There we go.
Colossus goes in to use his superior power to level out the plane, but of course he just warps the throttle. He bends the yoke out of shape.
Yep.
And Storm eventually wakes up and saves the day, but the ship sinks. Now, we have a thing that's been building is the other characters, the other supporting cast. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Peter Corbeau and Moira McTaggart.
Who's Carol really shown up. I mean, again, this is a character, Corbeau, who I was unaware of and has really shown up as a secondary character throughout this entire series we're doing.
Yes.
I kind of want to see more Corbeau. I don't know. He just seems really, really handy.
Leafs lose in the shootout. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go crazy for the rest of my life. These guys. Anyway, Carol Danvers, it says here, is a recently depowered, former member of the Avengers. It actually doesn't say she's depowered. It just says ex-Avenger Carol Danvers. Mm-hmm. And it suggests that we should read to see what happened to her. Go read Avengers Annual 10, which is coming out soon.
By the way, I'm 100% agreeing with Jason on this one. When is Corbeau getting to Marvel Legends Fig? 100%. That's exactly what I mean. He keeps popping up as a very reliable. He's either in space or he's in a laboratory, or now he's on a boat.
Let's just take this at face value, and not for jokes. So Jason and Trevor can both weigh in, and Chris definitely weigh in if you've got an answer for this. Mm-hmm. What version of Corbeau would you want to see in action figure, and then on what buck? What's the figure body that goes with the Dr. Peter Corbeau? Do you want him in his captain's hat? Do you want him in black t-shirt, or are you thinking astronaut suit on that recent Red Skull body that they've been using, where it's a little bit of clothing, like a looser cloth, but you could paint it up like a sort of a flight suit of some kind. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see what you guys all think. So in terms of when Avengers Annual 10 should be read, this is why we read it before this, is because she's already depowered. Even though the issue hasn't come out yet.
Right.
So people haven't read it yet. chronologically within the narrative,
That's wild.
it's she's already depowered. So
They're like, read Avengers 10, and they're like, but it's not out yet.
well, they don't know. Michael Golden's slow.
Right.
He was slow. So anyway, they're trying to figure out where to go, Bermuda Triangle style, and they're on a hydrofoil. How cool is that?
Right. It's like a boat, but in the air.
So Jason says maybe sword 2-pack with Abigail Brand, like the Shield Trooper Buck, the new one. Is there the Shield Trooper Buck? I didn't get, but are they still on the Bucky cap, or is there a new pinless Buck? Because if there isn't, that means we need a new Nick Fury soon. I did not know that Corbeau came back. Is he part of Sword? Which, Chris, you know what Sword is?
Yeah, it's like Shield, but in space.
Isn't that great? It's like such an easy way to understand it. It's like it's Shield, but in space. You gotta love it. So good, so good. All right. Hydrofoil.
Who's Abigail Brand.
Agent Brand is a Sword like director, and
Does she have green hair?
Yeah, you met her.
I have met her
in Astonishing X-Men. She's part
of
that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's want to move on.
Hydrofoil.
Hydrofoil is awesome.
There we go.
So yeah, the ship goes to the bottom of the ocean on a reef actually, and the team goes out. Storm gets rid of her boots and stuff.
Yeah. Everyone else stays in costume except for Storm.
Yeah, well, Storm's leg wear is not easy to swim in. I agree. And her cape also is problematic. But then again, remember, they have unstable molecules.
Of course.
So they can maybe do something with that. Now, remember how Cyclops' I-beams are not working? There's an inhibitor field on the island.
Mm-hmm.
So as they're approaching the island, they make this plot device, this very contrived thing where they only have four breathing apparatus.
Yep.
And of course, there are 5 members of the team. So,
but as we learned in previous issues,
Peter can breathe under. He doesn't need
breathe underwater when he's in
metal form.
No.
So he walks along the bottom of the water, bottom of the coral reef there, and because they get closer to the inhibitor field, his powers turn off, and he is by the White Wolf, which is not referring to Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
nice.
So he drowns, and Cockrum gets to show off his scale at drawing faces up close, like the larger face. He's always really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jason says, same Buck used for Vulcan. Perfect. Okay, not Bucky. I have not seen those new S.H.I.E.L.D. agent figures, so that's great. Corbeau was in the Avengers cartoon as a Sword member.
Oh.
Didn't know he was a Hulk character. Oh, he's a Hulk character? That's cool.
Oh, didn't know that. Okay.
There you go. Neat. So, yeah, I'm all down with that. Whatever works.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea that not every character is super fit, though. That you get a variety of body types.
Right. Bit of dad bods. Is that what you're thinking? That's where
you're at. Okay, that's cool. So, cliffhanger, Colossus is drowning. Now we get back to, remember, they were having a moment before they were having a kiss, and now look. Cyclops is asleep.
Look at him. He's out.
He's out.
He's out.
Jason says he debuted in Incredible Hulk 148. There you go. Look at you, Mr. Internet. That's amazing. So Lee decides that she's trying to figure out in her internal monologue what is she going to do? Do we fight? Do we not fight? We can't let this happen. And as she's walking along, kind of pier type thing.
Yeah.
Wolverine clearly
decides to drown her.
This is ridiculous, okay? Because within 2 panels, they're not showing us they're not telling us it's Wolverine. Like in the last panel, they're hiding who he is. I say they, Cockrum and Rubenstein are hiding Wolverine's figure, so we are not supposed to know who it is. But the hand that came out of the water is so clearly Wolverine. What's the point of hiding who he is?
Right.
It's just very silly. Either hide him or don't, but don't do both. So she gets tossed into the water. I sure hope you can swim, sweetheart.
Sweetheart. Yeah, I love how she looks so threatening. He's like, I ain't trusting you. Get in the water.
Yeah. Well, I think the way I'm going to read it is
Yes.
remember that inhibitor field is on.
Mm-hmm.
So Wolverine's senses are not working properly. So he
Well, and
can't really
that is
tell.
something that we get to.
I'm going to apply that thing that they later reveal. I'm going to apply it to this scene. Like he doesn't know he can't smell if she's hostile or not. So he's just, throwing everyone into the water. And then this first panel, again, he's in shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Who? What? Are you? Why? Shut up.
Shut up.
Not a word, not a sound, or you're dead. Understand?
Yeah. He's like, shut up. Do you know how I was eating a really good sandwich and then the friggin' plane went down and I lost my sandwich.
It's such a good sandwich.
Oh, so good.
She hears their characters' names, Storm and Wolverine, and she realizes it's the X-Men. She reveals that she's friends of Cyclops, and they need to give Colossus CPR.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna die. He's almost
dead. You know what I was really at one point, and they wouldn't do it, I don't think at this point. Maybe they do an issue now, is that he's got CPR, but he needs like an emergency tracheotomy, and he just like puts the claw into his throat,
That's great. Have you seen that in a comic before?
Aside from our comics, the one we just wrote right now. I don't think I have. Have you?
Yes. Batman.
Oh, okay. And
Batman performs a tracheotomy on an infant.
With his batarang?
No, I think he pulls a tool out of his belt.
Okay. Because like Wolverine is a natural for.
Yes. Batman, I think it's Riddler, as a way to allow himself a quick escape. He puts a baby in the middle of the road that has a ping pong ball down its throat, so it can't breathe. And Batman has to puncture to save the baby. And of course, because of the focus to do that, Riddler gets away. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Very elaborate and dark for a getaway.
And it might even be called Dark City. It was like the 2 or 3 parter, but Mignola does the covers.
Oh, okay.
So which is kind of cool. And John Byrne's stepson, Kieran Dwyer, does the interior art, if memory serves. It's been a while since I've read that. Jason says Sprite's costume looks like an early inspiration of Miss Marvel's costume in Kamala Khan. Or Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
It's very, very playful and youthful. And
they've dropped the roller skates, which was in a couple of issues ago.
Yes. It really doesn't work for me, but I get what they're going for. Oh, hey, Emmett. How you doing, buddy? Okay, see you later. So, yeah, Peter survives. They perform CPR, and, first person he calls for, he asks Kitty, yeah, am I dead? So it's great. He's alive, and Wolverine's face is like back to business. Here we go.
Yeah. Wet Wolverine looks pretty good here, too, I think.
That should be the name of the series we write.
Wet Wolverine looks pretty good.
So Wolverine, he right away gets, I guess he hears somebody. No, he says a scent, but of course,
but it's faint.
You and I know it's a faint scent. It seems familiar. He's not quite sure what's going on. He can't place it because his powers are inhibited. And the guy gets the drop on him. Looking for me, short stuff? Huh?
Boo? And immediately he pops his claws.
He does, and he just about... It's because of the F. It says free sucker, and I just, if you read it too fast, it's free fucker. So yeah, they've reunited with Cyclops, which is great. No powers. He's like, oh, this is where they learn they don't know their powers, kind of. And Cyclops explains, the same thing that happened to Wolverine's senses, and I'll wager to Colossus.
Yeah.
Underwater, Tavares, right?
Yep.
So they have no powers, and now they have to figure out a way to defeat Magneto, save the world with no powers.
Seems impossible.
And there's this giant statue of a merman, creature from the Black Lagoon that they're standing under, and no one's like, hey, what's with this city? Where did I come from?
This place. Yeah.
Who created this place? Like, where are we? Why are we?
See, that's all you need is like the next panel is just the eyes of the sea creature following them.
Yeah, and you can bring it back at a later date.
Exactly.
I mean, it feels like this is like where Marina, it's like a really quick connection to like Marina's ancestry, but she's alien actually. But
Right.
then they wander through the city trying to do stuff, and I feel like this next section is a little bit Star Wars inspired.
Oh yeah, it's the tractor
Right?
beam, right? Yeah,
It's the tractor
Death Star
beam.
tractor beam.
I feel like they're in that central, like, it's not a corridor, like a huge chasm within the Death Star of where the anyway.
It's
I'm using my
also
words.
yeah, and I mean again, you do wonder. It is a double-sized issue, and you do wonder. I don't know. Maybe it could have been a single issue.
Maybe.
Because there's things like this where they spend a lot of time trying to, trying to take this thing out. And as we see later, it's kind of all for naught.
Right. Well, I do like that as a plot point.
Okay.
The character's awful plan. They're trying to do this thing. They risk everything to do this one thing, and then it doesn't work.
Right.
So what do you do now? Which is really like a midpoint of a movie. You get that usually, like we think this is our goal. Turns out this is not actually our goal. We need to pivot and come up with another solution, which is good storytelling and can be a lot of fun if it's done well. So they cut their way into this machine this is going to stop Magneto from being able to do his plan. What is this thing?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's that doesn't it impact the volcano stuff? Isn't that what I'm
not exactly sure.
It's not a real. That first step is a real Lulu, by the way. Who says that? Instead of a real doozy, anyway.
That is Cyclops.
Okay, here we go. Once that device is, it's the. He created a device capable of manipulating the Earth's crust. So it's a volcano thing. He field tested by raising this island from the sea bottom.
Yeah, so I should read this more carefully.
Once that device is destroyed, we win.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very Death Star-ish.
And also, this is hilarious. One thing we didn't point out, too, of course, is right before Cyclops says that, he goes, "Hey, why are you splitting the team? I've explained my reasons, and the women's talents won't be of much use to us."
Oh my gosh.
Jeez, Scott. I mean, you just got out of bed with Lee. I mean, feel.
Wow.
Yeah, not too generous there, Scott.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I get it now. So
the Cutler's not here to defend him.
He is able to raise land masses and like the Earth's crust one way or the other. Jason loves this cancel Cyclops.
Cancel Cyclops.
The first or last time that happened.
Not my Cyclops, Jason.
We are also, just from a production point of view, we are starting to switch inkers and letterers momentarily. So I think we now are on to Bob Wiacek is the new inker for the second half of this issue. And remember we had that issue that was lettered really badly?
Yes.
We get that letterer in the last bunch of pages soon. Okay. Anyway, so now that the men are doing their mission, we get to see what the women are up to.
Yeah.
And again, this really great architecture, kind of this citadel, which dominates the island. Yeah. Magneto, of course, uses it for his own personal use.
More fish people statues.
Yep.
Right.
And Storm has her costume back to its full, like they're all,
Yeah.
So that's cool. And she uses her lockpicking skills.
Yeah.
She learned is the best.
Like they're not helpful, please.
Yes.
And what is holding Kitty's mask on?
Unstable molecules.
Gotcha. Just want to make sure.
And there's some fun, early 80s computer talk.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's like a manual. It's fun. The programming book, she calls it.
Yeah.
For the big computers.
I guess it's funny how they've made Kitty like a tech whiz too.
Yeah, she's real smart.
Right. Well, but that automatically
about that back in the Burn issues. Like she talks about how smart she is when they go out for dinner. I think with Stevie Hunter, and even earlier, I think she talks. Oh, about going to a special school, that she's smarter than everybody else when she's
Mhm.
talking to Storm when they were, early on. That's a regular occurrence, I think, with Kitty, is that from the beginning that she's real smart.
She's real smarty.
Yeah, she's a smarty. So Storm goes into another room and finds, like, to me the drawings look different now. Oh, when we turn pages, there we go. Starting to look a little different, like a different brush being used.
Do you know what's great, by the way?
What?
Just to lead up to this scene of Magneto sleeping soundly in his bed. They say, sorry, just I found it hilarious. It's that there's a cup of coffee here and it's still warm. He must have just left. And it's like, no, I don't think you do that. You don't just leave and then fall into a deep sleep.
That's good.
The timing is so off.
Yes. So Storm she finds that Magneto is completely vulnerable, and she really contemplates just killing him, like just flat out murdering the man. And she recognizes that Wolverine would have no hesitation. That really could be a great solution to this whole dilemma, just eliminate the man altogether. And this to me is also some foreshadowing, right? She spares his life in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that will come back to play a part down the road. The men are all huddled around the computer trying to figure out what to do.
They're like, just break it.
Right then. Since we can't turn it off, let's wreck it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
it reminds you of the scene in Zoolander. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like the files are in the computer. And start like just hitting it across and bashing it.
Yeah, they do a Planet of the 2001.
2001, exactly.
Yeah, that's very funny. So again, the characters don't have their mutant abilities, so Nightcrawler can't teleport out there. He is still very agile just by his natural state, and they don't talk about this yet, like the pain and the cutting that it causes Wolverine to pop his claws.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't heal from those wounds, like in his hand. They don't talk about his healing factor being diminished so much.
Right.
But me having read more comics and seen movies, like that's what like that question Rogue asks him, like, does it hurt? Every time. Yeah. So I keep thinking of that when I read this.
Yeah, I didn't think that for sure, though. You're absolutely right.
Anyway, they again create some more danger just to keep the beats going.
Yeah. It's a double issue. That's what I mean. This is like kind of filler.
Yeah, it doesn't add anything to the story, except for it just shows more of Nightcrawler's ability, that Wolverine's not that careful, and Nightcrawler is an acrobat. So it's kind of fun. And just a little bit of play. It's really just a page and a half of filler or just added adventure, added stakes. So here we get Storm, looking at that. By the way, what a disgusting looking plate of food.
Yeah. I mean, those are peas, I guess.
Or whatever it is. Sorry, I heard my dog whimpering.
Sure.
Just wanted to get that door ready for him. But the cover looks good, so he Storm should kill him. What is she going to do? And she works herself into a real good lather, thinking about whether to kill him or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She says she did it once before earlier in her life, and she could do it again. And she is unable to do it. In that instant, Magneto wakes up and sees that she's there. And then this is probably my favorite part of the issue. He sends Storm flying out the window.
Yep.
I just want to say, if there is glass in this underwater city,
yes,
that probably wouldn't work. But anyway, he sends her flying out the window to her death. And then he
mentally commands his outfit on.
Yes, which I actually really love. Like, of course it's made of tiny metallic particles.
Mesh armored fabric.
Yes, of course. And it pours on him nanobot styles. Like, I'm all into that.
Mm-hmm.
Will those insufferable youths never learn? Like, ugh. And he thinks Aurora had a knife. She couldn't defend herself with her elemental powers because my inhibitor field stripped her, as well as her mutant companions, of their mutant abilities. But he's just thinking, like, she had a knife at me. She could have killed me. And then finally we see something we've needed to see, which is Xavier makes his presence known.
Yeah.
and he projects himself to an astral projection.
Astral naked Xavier.
Well, he's not naked. He's idealized and he's missing some body parts.
Mm.
Like there's no dangle unless he's fully erect, and that's why there's no dangle. He's
holy crap.
I like the idea that Xavier, like, again, makes himself known and just goes on the attack. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this woman who, like, mischaracterization here of Carol Danvers, we know from our experience reading Avengers Annual 10 that she's in an incredibly vulnerable state. She's recovering from a couple assaults of very dramatic and serious nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of don't think she's showing off her midriff.
Also, I believe that midriff is so small.
Well, yeah, that's like J. Scott Campbell or one of those 90s guys. Just teeny tiny. But I just think that there's no connection to what we've seen with the character in other stories. Like this is them just drawing cheesecake stuff.
Yep.
But then really cool, like, Xavier has gone on the offensive. He's gone right after Magneto, but Magneto's going after him.
I actually really like this. I love
Me too.
It's the Bolton that are bolting his and I just thought, oh, good, he's just going to drown him.
Oh yeah, it's just a good subtle move. Like it's the chess match. Like you think we're facing off here, but really, I'm sneaking behind you and I'm about to kill you from.
It's great
with a knife in the back. It is really, really good. And so he eliminates Xavier as a threat and actually brings him.
Yeah.
All right, you want to be here? So be here, buddy. Like, that's great. And this Cockrum face of Carol Danvers is so Kirby.
Yeah. It's Sue Storm, right?
Yeah, it's rounder than Kirby, but it feels like it just pulled right from a Kirby picture almost, and then drawn in Cockrum style. So yeah, they're still trying to hack these things. Look at Cyclops standing there. I'm going to point. Slash there, Wolverine. I'm a good leader. Yeah, right there. Just slash there.
Yep, and they send the thing hurtling to the depths of wherever.
Yes, and we get that kind of Vertigo style. They really could have taken that panel with Wolverine hanging. With Colossus, they could have done a more dramatic job of it. But okay, he's there, and it's falling, and they're like, "We've beaten you." And he's like, "Yeah, perhaps you beaten me, but look what I have. I got your girl, I got your teacher, and I got your newest team member. They're my prisoners. And by the way, everything you did, total waste.
Everything you did over 5 pages, I've just fixed."
Yeah, which I do actually think is good. It just. You thought you were going to win, and actually you're wrong. You have to beat me a different way. I'm okay with that, but I do get the criticism. But for me, he gets a pass on that one. I think it adds, but I totally get it. Then he, captures the rest of the X-Men. I've got you all, and we're a Storm. And he says, "I killed her."
Yeah.
Though it gave me no pleasure to do so, right? Like Storm is dead. And I've got everyone captured. Storm's dead. And we don't leave any suspense. There's no time to let that be. We go right from him revealing that she's dead right into, she's not dead.
Right.
Like this is where, I think you were alluding to this before, but flipping the script? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Where we saw this with Wolverine? Or is that what you were thinking?
I was thinking more just like we enter into a phase like of the final pieces of this story where it becomes less it just becomes much more nuanced, and it becomes less mustache twirling villain, and this is all part of it.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you were referring to something else, and I'll spell it out then.
Yeah.
So we're at the end of the second act of this issue where the things are at their worst, right? Everyone is captured and Storm is dead. And this is where emotionally we should be at our low point in the narrative.
Right.
because it's all on the same page. It's not even a page flip. There's like it should go back to maybe the people on the boat or people in the world experiencing something, or the X-Men all stuck together for a moment. They should be able to mourn her for more than a gutter. And the reader should not be ahead of the X-Men in this moment.
Right.
We should be with the X-Men and in mourning of her. But we don't even get an entire page. We just get a gutter. Hey, Gary, how are you? Welcome to the stream tonight. Hope you're doing well, and Happy New Year. So there's Storm. She angled her descent as she's falling, thanks to her awesome cape wing things, and she hooked herself onto part of the architecture that was jutting out from the structure, and she really struggles to pull herself back up, and it's a huge strain, but she survives. And then she goes inside and takes a chair and just smashes stuff.
Yep.
There you go. There needed to be a gap there to me. Like this is the Wolverine coming out of the sewer, where everything is lost and everyone counts Wolverine as dead, but he's really alive. Like there's so much you could have there where, she plays a role where, we underestimate and the characters are really get to agonize over it for a while. Maybe I know he doesn't have goons, right? Like maybe he should have had
because he's by himself,
robots or something, and it could have been
fish people,
right?
Who are his, and something like that,
right? Something exciting to draw that out a tiny bit, or it gives her also another character to face where we don't know who's the person who beat the Merbot or whatever it is,
right? Merbot.
So the machine is destroyed. And right away, Cyclops' powers turn on, like Xavier's like, oh.
I do like that. I mean, I don't think it's particularly strong. It's very, you're right. It's very reminiscent of like an earlier time period of drawing in the 60s. But
yeah,
I do like the little crimson fire pieces coming out of his eyes.
Totally. The powers come back on. I'm into that. This is what happened also when Wolverine, that whole scene where like Cyclops they're fighting and Wolverine comes in and Cyclops blasts the helmet off.
Yeah.
Jean like undid the power dampener. Anyway, he fires his beams, knocks over one of the guys at the Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
So this is the exact same thing, and he pulls out the spare ruby quartz visor,
which they brought in their emergency pack. They didn't know Cyclops would be on the island at all. But you never know where you're going to need a spare ruby quartz visor.
And then we get a panel of the X-Men bursting into action.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
Wow.
I hate, obviously, we've talked about it before, Sprite's costume, Kitty Pryde's costume is just terrible. Her eyes are too far apart, but it's also Cyclops' pose in that costume.
Yeah.
It is such an awful outfit. Like, don't they ever ask him, well, why are you wearing that, dude? Like, who made these clothes for you?
Why are you wearing them? Costume sucks.
Why are you wearing a giant octopus on your chest that's probably made of metal? Like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they got a huge positive response and this became like the Cyclops costume for
where's the Marvel Legend of this one?
That's right. Now, Jason, we need to see the Marvel Legend of Cyclops.
Or the Kit Dash.
In his island outfit, his Bermuda Triangle aquatic citadel outfit.
Bermuda Triangle Cyclops.
Strangely, there's the miscolor of Colossus's face in that bottom panel.
So I took that as, is he half changing?
No, because in the panel before, he's fully changed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay.
And now, by the way, this is the first page of the new letter. And I'm not sure if that's something you can tell. 100% for me, I see that the
I can see it from the previous page. Yeah.
Yes, these two pages are two different letters. I can just their handwriting is different. And I wonder if we're going to see any problems where we have trouble. I don't think we're going to have any of those again this time, but I just don't enjoy this person's script the way Orzakowski is like fantastic, and Gene Simic is not at this point in time. Gary says he has a love-hate relationship with Cockrum. I don't have feelings as strong as love or hate. I definitely don't hate his stuff, but I definitely don't love it either. But I get why someone else would.
Both love and hate it.
Jason says, I'm late to the party, so fill me in. What's the deal with Cyclops' costume? So,
Jeez.
if you're being serious, which I'll take you at face value, Cyclops and Captain Lee Forrester are shipwrecked on a neighboring island. Not abandoned island. It's not a desert island. It's a Bermuda Triangle island that just has basically nothing on it. A couple trees, maybe some coconuts, and they're wearing like torn up, jean shorts and t-shirts that are in tatters, or shirts that are in tatters.
Mm-hmm.
And as they wander their island, as they're castaways, they discover that there is this giant, weird, almost alien but aquatic citadel, like Atlantic Ocean themed citadel, for no reason near their island. They walk to it, and when they're there, it's an empty city, and they find these clothes, and that's the whole story. Cyclops finds these clothes in this city, and so instead of being naked, he wears these clothes. There you go. You're now up to date.
Again, when are we getting the fig? There you go.
Yeah, well, it requires at least, the boots you could probably salvage from the other swashbuckler boots that don't have as big a cuff, but you just make use. But the shoulder pad, like the top he's wearing, has to be an additional piece of plastic that you'd put on top of a character, like a tunic, right? So that you don't have to have a new buck, but you just have to have that as an additional piece. There you go. Anyway, fighting. Cool.
Hey.
Jason says, "Thank you." And what the heck?
And here,
right.
And here we've got the looping back to your earlier comment about
right.
Someone just needs to go behind Magneto while he's focused and bash him with a baseball bat, and exactly that's what Nightcrawler does.
Yes, as he should. I love it. Kang off his helmet, and loses his focus and allows him to get a bit of an upper hand. Colossus uses his powers to bring a wall down.
Yeah,
which is awesome. Yeah, very cool. And he gets his force field up, and they all just pour it on, right? I have to tell you, this panel of Magneto on the next page at the top, where Wolverine is doing like a two-fisted slash thing, and Colossus is pounding down, and Cyclops is pointing again and shooting. Mm-hmm. This panel is, I believe, in the Marvel Universe Handbook for Magneto. Yeah, for Magneto. And I could never, in my wildest dreams as a child, figure out what was going on with Cyclops' costume. I was like, what?
You're right.
Why is he not wearing his mask?
Right.
What's on his arm? What are these lines? This mystery has been plaguing me for like 35 years.
Well, now it's done. If you figured it out. You can rest assured and happy, Previously, X-Men has done its job.
Yes. Gary Shipman Art says, I did not like Cockrum when these issues came out, but all these years later, I look at his work with fondness. I'm fond for certain parts of it too, but I also it's such a downer to me after the heights that Byrne took it to. It just never lives up. And I see moments lacking in intensity or dynamism so often that I have trouble seeing past it, but I'm trying to see something to love in them. I'm trying. Now we do get a great moment where, like, Storm screams from the heavens, Magneto. He's like, actually, it's pronounced Magneto. Urgh! And she, comes down with all of her might, like Captain America holding Mjolnir.
That's right. A tornado.
So Storm is known to us now. She's alive. She's been alive the whole time. Yeah, could have done something with that. And they fight. So they just go back and forth with discussing how they're fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And Magneto tries to use Colossus as a living weapon.
That's pretty
and
fun.
throws him, which is great at Storm, knocking
pretty
her.
funny.
Yeah. And they remind him, like, turn your powers off, dummy, and he can't do anything to you.
What?
You're a projectile. And Xavier tells them with his telepathy, he's trying to, child, but he cannot. So Xavier uses his powers on Magneto, and Wolverine gets a headshot.
Mm-hmm.
As does Magneto. That pipe goes off Xavier's chrome dome. And Wolverine destroys that helmet. That's awesome.
That was cool.
Yeah. And then it goes back to being maybe the two most powerful characters in a way. It's Storm versus, it's like the future leader and the future headmaster.
Right.
Kind of neat to set these two opposite each other. And they start to make plans of what to do.
Yeah, Cyclops points again.
Yep. And they go to fight Magneto some more. And we can see definitely these pages aren't Cockrum anymore. I mean, sorry, aren't Rubenstein. Like that, how under-rendered some of the drawings are. Looks like, young Wiacek. And again, more of the same. And he basically fries, if you flip the page, I think if you're okay with it.
Yeah, so much.
There's a lot. He fries Storm there, which is cool. He'll never surrender. Fighting continues. Kitty Pryde uses her powers to disrupt his technology, which we see as a ongoing Kitty Pryde trope.
Yep.
He overpowers Storm. Nightcrawler takes her to the ocean to save her life, to cool her down. And we can continue going. And then he basically gets to confront Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
So the most, vulnerable. And he's coming at her furious because she's destroyed his machine.
Mm-hmm.
And his plan is now coming to an end because he can't do anything without his machine.
Again.
And the stakes feel very high. Like, no one's there to help her. It's her versus Magneto on her own. She's completely outmatched.
Yep.
And he sends a lethal charge of electricity through her.
Yeah. So the way she says is, Kitty lunges forward, planning to escape harmlessly through him, which we've seen her do before. Right. But her phasing disrupts Magneto's natural electronic field, jolting him painfully, and he reacts. Mm-hmm. Ruthlessly responds, sending a lethal charge of electricity through her. Then his pain subsides.
A reflex,
Yeah. And it takes him out his berserker rage, which we at this point have only ever really associated with Wolverine.
Yes.
And here we go.
And he believes she's dead.
Yeah.
And he starts to, go into a whole thing about his beloved wife that died.
Yeah.
And about his daughter that died. And his rage, comes from a place that is about family for him. They also make mention here about remembering the gas chambers in Auschwitz.
Yep.
And I don't remember, and he talks about the guards laughing, and that the people they were killing were less than human to them. They were nothing to him. I don't remember if there was another mention prior to this of him being a Holocaust survivor.
Right.
This is the first I think I've read of it, and there was no note of it in the page that I was researching. But I'd like to follow up on that on my own. This might be the first mention of it, of him.
Which then really is formed as the canon behind so many pieces of Magneto lore.
It really does. And if you think about, the place that his anger is coming from, it fleshes him out. It makes him not the mustache twirler anymore, but a person who believes in something very strongly, but has also lost something along the way.
Right. And so
it forms their decisions in a profound way.
And so is this the moment? This is what this is really the most important part of the book.
It really is.
Especially because of what it sets up, right? You had mentioned earlier Claremont's intention of having Magneto lead the school at some point, redemptive arc. And we see that happen in multiple ways over the X-verse, over the next 30 years past this comic, of the whether Magneto is a headmaster, whether he is leading the X-Men, whether he is a foil, whether he is just a colleague in some respects. So this moment, this a child, my goodness, what have I done? Is this the real start of that? In terms of putting Magneto on a path that, although will still run at odds to the X-Men in certain spaces, leads him more towards the ally end of the spectrum as opposed to enemy.
It is, and I love that.
Which is huge, right? And if it is, then it's huge.
Yeah,
because so much of what we know comes from that.
Yes, and his unshakable conviction to be a destroyer of the world is now shaken, and it makes him, a more three-dimensional character. He can only do so many heel turns before he loses credibility. And if you look at the movies, for instance, he flip-flops every movie, especially in the revamped, like the rebooted ones, the Fassbender ones, like in X-Men Apocalypse. He's on his own, and then
he's one of the Horsemen.
He's one of the Horsemen, and he just kind of undoes it, and then he, it just, the flip flop is no good. It has to be like a big ship takes longer to turn,
right?
So you can't have him making, getting a new outlook every couple scenes. He needs to just go from one to the other, and then he can't move back. But it's dramatic, and I also like, again, that Storm is the hero center of kind of this. She's the one who confronts him, and I love that it's 1981, and we've got a black woman protagonist is like the core of this series at the moment. It's really groundbreaking, and Claremont he loves these characters. And I'm grateful. I love them too. They're really, really great. And she says to him, like, this is dramatic. If you have a deity, Butcher, pray to it. And he replies, as a boy, I believed. As a boy, I turned my back on God forever. Kill me if you wish, Wind Rider. I will not stop you. Like, wow. He's feeling pretty terrible that he killed this kid. But at the same time, why does he think he killed the kid? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, check for a pulse, like before you
just
throw out all your values.
In the moment.
Yeah. So this is a good, like, reflective. I do like this as part of the conclusion.
Right.
And he continues. He says, "Yes, only it has been played on. It only has been played on me. Like, the trick has been played on me. I believe so much in my destiny, in my own personal vision, that I was prepared to pay any price, make any sacrifice to achieve it. But I forgot the innocents who would suffer in the process. Can you not appreciate the irony, Aurora? In my zeal to remake the world, I have become much like those I have always hated and despised."
Whoa, irony.
Yeah. She says to him, the dream was good, is good. Only the dreamer has become corrupted. And then the thing we've been talking about, he says, is it too late to change, Aurora? Am I too old? I have lived too long with my hatred. And then she says, so be it, Magneto. The choice is yours. Give me my child. And it's really dramatic. And I think, again, if you were to tackle these pages as a new artist, you might pace it differently and give certain things a little bit more room.
Right.
Where does he go? It glosses over that. We don't ever see him make the choice. We just go, again, between the gutters. We see that they're now roasting marshmallows.
Yep.
I would have maybe a couple silent panels of him handing off the child and him flying away.
Right.
Does it give us a clear explanation as to what happened, where he went? He just flew away. It says he fled because he came face to face with himself and could not stand the sight. But it doesn't really, like, maybe we need to see him feel shame and just let it breathe for a minute. But this is 1981, so we're not really going to get those kinds of comics yet. Jason Lowe says, and to see the mutual respect Storm and Magneto have for each other in the current X-Men Red series, such a great title now. I really want to get back to reading X-Men comics. It just feels so unwieldy. And I'm, other than X-Men Unlimited, by the way.
Other than that, well, that's on all our, yeah.
Those are joy, but the idea of the continuity it feels very, very heavy to pick up X-Men titles, generally speaking. So I want to read modern stuff, but I'm also, obviously very wrapped up in this moment in time, and then some other comics which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. I love what the X-Men have, like their beach versions of their suits.
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine's wearing a Speedo, and I'm pretty sure Nightcrawler's naked completely. They keep resisting showing us his midsection.
True. And there's Corbeau, though, with the drink as well.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
That's a fun.
Kitty's fine. It is. Kitty was okay the whole time. She survived. They tell us she survived. And then we get the real good ending, which is the Star Wars prank.
Yeah.
Right? Where she says she's Luke Skywalker using the Force, which is great. I love the fact that they watch Star Wars. It was such a phenomenon,
Sure.
And they all buy it. And of course, it's Colossus who's picking it up from underneath. And they toss her in the drink.
And as we look towards issue 151, which, by the way, has a guest penciler.
Yes.
Jim Sherman. Again, do we embark? We're still waiting on this series, waiting to get to a new arc, a new something that kicks off a new era or a new demonstrably enjoyable storyline. I don't know. Like, since the Byrne and Claremont run has ended, it's really kind of gone back and forth a little bit. Kind of villain of the week sometimes. This one was there's a two-parter-ish.
Yeah, built.
But I feel like the key to this is like a natural ending again. So we've now just made this massive character change with Magneto, right? Their most deadliest villain.
Yes.
So, like, are we now on a new arc? Are we on a new path now?
Well, this should be the start of something new for sure.
Right. Should be the start of something new, right?
Yes.
So I guess we'll find out next week.
Yeah, and we're going to see what Cyclops going to do. Is he going to join the team and stay with them?
Is he going to keep that costume? Or is that only for him and Captain Lee?
One can dream that we get to keep this costume, Chris. One can dream. I really hope so. There was no letter page this issue, by the way.
No.
Which is fine. But yeah, we're going to see, does Cyclops join? What happens with the rest of the characters? Who is Jim Sherman? Does he become a more prominent artist? Does he have a long career after that? I'm looking at the issue now, at least in the photostat version I have here, and we'll see what comes up and where this leads. And I, of course, am very interested. Joe Rubenstein stays on as the anchor in this issue, which gives it some continuity. And we're going to see, some character pieces. I've been thinking a lot about what it is that makes the X-Men so successful in this time period.
Okay.
And for the decade, the 17 or 16 years of Claremont, and I think it's the combination of characters going through their arcs, their personal arcs with their personal growth and their problems against a backdrop of, or maybe it's the other way around, but I'll just say against the backdrop of them being outcasts and dealing with very urgent high stakes.
Right.
So like it's them on their adventures, like to save everything, while going through their growth, each of them, their personal journeys, and then being outcast. And it's like the blend of those things and the way they weave in and out makes for a very compelling adventure series. Sure. Like they're everyone can identify with them as not feeling like they belong. Everyone also, people, we as readers, we all grow and we have our problems, so we identify with that part of it, and we get the fun adventure and the high stakes and the action. So it's the blend of those things I think makes it a really dynamic series. And I think that's the magic sauce. And once you take out one of those things, I think the series will stop working.
Yeah,
Or will
maybe.
stop like X-Men.
Yeah, exactly. Slows
And
down, you know.
yeah, and that's what Claremont brings, right? He brings the magic of those pieces together. Oh, cool. This is really neat. I'm excited to see what comes next. Can I just, now that we're done with that issue, I'm gonna just ramble for a sec.
Ramble.
So I stopped reading X-Men in what year was it? I guess late 80s. I'm having trouble here picking a year out of this cover. But about 89, 90, I stopped reading. So Jim Lee's art was amazing and it, made me want to keep reading. But there were starting to be crossovers often in the multiple titles. There were 2 Wolverine series. There was X-Men, New Mutants, X Factor, or I should say Uncanny X-Men, X Factor, New Mutants. So there were kind of like 5 titles keeping track of, and there were the annuals. It just got to be a little bit much, and the story stopped feeling cohesive to me. The X-Men go through they kind of do a reboot to the series at some point. I started losing interest, but I stopped collecting at issue 168. And Claremont ends his run at issue 268, and he ends his run at issue 280. So I stopped a year before Claremont quits. And I'm thinking to myself, we really should finish the run.
Mm-hmm.
We should continue on and like get the whole Claremont journey, but I need those issues. So I got it in my head. Gary says that's when he stopped reading too. My one of my last issues is like Gambit's first. I'm like right around that time period, or in there I'm just like I don't care about
266, the first appearance of Gambit.
Storm's a kid now, and like I just
Wait, what?
Exactly. There are all these things that it felt like it was a new continuity almost, and they kind of like I said rebooted a lot of the characters. And Colossus was now an artist in New York with no memory of being an X-Men. It was just a whole bunch of it doesn't matter.
I don't like it.
There was also, of course, Excalibur. I forgot about Excalibur.
Right.
So I've never got those issues, and Cousin Jer was going to Beguiling. I was like, hey man, can you just in the basement just let me know if. And so he picked me up like the handful of issues that I did not get before. So now I have the ones that I was missing. I'm still missing 2 issues, but it basically finishes off my Chris Claremont issues, other than the ones I don't have from early, like the Byrne ones that I'm missing. Yeah. But I have now a huge dent in my collection, including the soon to be like, I don't know, I guess it's an iconic one. I'll put this in full for a second here. So the layout. So this one, Chris, is like typical of what comics become in this era, because it is the X-Men in these uniforms, but it's a wraparound cover.
Oh, of course. Right.
And there's figures coming of all these, right?
Right, I did see those.
It's not just a wraparound. It also...
Oh, my goodness.
So when I saw this and I saw all the figures, all the Marvel Legends figures, I was like, I really got to get this.
Who's behind Wolverine and Psylocke?
You're going to have to wait until we get to issue 275 to find out.
I don't think I can wait that long.
You're going to have to, my friend. So I was really excited to get my hands on this and to see Jim Lee art back on like new Jim Lee art for me on newsprint as opposed to digital stuff. And, it's also like there's the first page, the Starjammers, dude.
Is that Chode?
Chode. It reminds me like why people that are like younger readers, like our good friend Jason Lowe, why they love the Starjammers. So like I always thought it was just from classic X-Men. I didn't know they came back. Right. But there is going to be some sort of Shi'ar Empire Starjammers, a cosmic, or galactic thing, but there is, and it's there. So when I saw those new Marvel Legends, like the new wave coming, it has Starjammers in it. I'm like, oh, okay, there's something going on. I missed some stuff. It's not
there's a Banshee fig in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. But to see Lee's art on newsprint is it's a treat. But boy, oh boy, it is all sizzle. The story, like there's a character. Do you know who Cameron Hodge is?
Sounds really familiar.
He was in the cartoon, I think, maybe, but
I think so too.
um, he's in a Joker smile like the entire time. Characters are just all flex all the time, constant. It's all up to 11. All the machinery is like because the newsprint on these copies I have, it's really quite blurry. Um, there are pages that are so heavily inked from ads that the ink is like on the other page too, from like those ninja video games. Like all this black ink is on that
Yeah.
reading. The whole thing is blurry. Most of what Scott Williams inks, you can't even see it. It's like, why are you guys drawing all these lines when they don't translate? And like it shows the wisdom of the old, Jack Kirby, Joe Sinnott, or Mike Royer, or whoever your favorite Kirby inker is. Like there's wisdom in drawing things simply because it doesn't actually add to the readability. It detracts from the readability of your art when you pile on so many lines for no reason. Like Mignola is a genius to clarify things so much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's neat to see it all muddled up. Jason says, I can't wait for those Ode and Corsair figures.
Ode.
Me too. I can't wait. I'm very excited. We're living in an amazing age. Anyway, so much X-Men. I'm so excited to get these issues, and so I'm now reading X-Men at that stage and our kind of play.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what do you want to say, Chris?
Happy New Year, everyone out there. Hey, we at the moment are actually tomorrow, I think you're mentioning. So we've been doing a daily comic on our Instagram page, the Group 7 Comics, Peregrine's Hunter's Moon. It ends officially tomorrow. So over 100 panels or so. We'll see that one in print form, probably in time for the next show. Just trying to line all that stuff up right now. And aside from that, Jason was holding up our comics there. We just set up the new online store on our website. Go check it out. It don't have to track you through Google Docs anymore. Go use the website. It does everything for you. And aside from that, we hopefully will have some news soon to share about a few other projects, initiatives, and little fun things we got going on. It's been fairly, I'd say the last 6 weeks have been fairly productive in our space, just in terms of like new things coming out and new things to work on. So it's exciting times.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Please click like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you feel like sharing,
tell your friends
too. We'd love to grow the channel and do a little more with it if we could. And your participation makes a difference. Even engage with it. I know you're here in the live stream, Jason and Gary. We really appreciate that. Anyone out there who watches this on the replay, by the way, recommendation: why not watch it at 1.5 speed?
We've heard good things.
We've heard good things about doing it that way. Take that hour 42 and shrink it down. It's a much more digestible product if you want to do it that way, which is an option. But engage with the comments there. Like, let us know what you think. Which are your favorite issues? What do you think of this issue? The more engagement we get out of you, the more viewership we get, and which is really, really helpful. And will help us grow the channel, provide better content and more content for you, which we would love to do for you. So please do that, and we'd really appreciate it. Hope everyone's well. Happy New Year to everyone out there. Have a wonderful week. If there are other comics you think we should read that are X-Men adjacent, other Claremont things that are maybe not in the numerical order, but things like God Loves, Man Kills, the graphic novel, things like that, we're definitely open-minded to taking a lateral move to include more X-Men content in our never-ending Tuesday night Chris Claremont inspired X-Men live stream. So let us know. That would be wonderful. Chris, have a wonderful night, my friend.
Thanks, you too. Thanks everybody for joining. Have a safe one. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers. Everyone be well.